everyone. I'm Shira from Redefine, and I'm here to talk to you about DeFi security. So let's start with a quick question, or a couple of questions. Please raise your hand if you ever made a swap on Uniswap using a MetaMask wallet. Okay, that's nice. So it's going to look like that, right? Let's take it to the next level. How about a programmatic swap using, the Uniswap contracts directly? No? Okay. Yeah? Anybody else? Cool. Let's try you guys one more time. How about, well, it's going to look like that, and then the bytecode would look like that. How about supplying liquidity programmatically? Okay, no one? Okay, so it would look like that, and the bytecode would look like that. But basically what I want to say here is that the more complicated it gets, the more we tend to go through intermediary to accomplish what we want to do. So we live in exciting times where people build crazy shit. It gets more efficient, more sophisticated, more impressive, but it also gets more complicated. And as a result, it's also harder to secure. And we'll touch on that in a minute. So let's go back to classic crypto, right? When it wasn't so complicated, when the only transaction we could do was Bitcoin move it from A to B. Very simple, very straightforward. The Bitcoin blockchain is actually inherently secure because if you want to pull off a cybersecurity attack, the first thing you do as an attacker, you're looking for that one single point of failure that you can abuse, where you can change something or tweak it or erase something. But if you have a decentralized network, like the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, then there is no one single point of failure. Whenever you're going to touch something or change something, the 99% of the network is going to be inconsistent with whatever it is you did, and your attack will fail. This is why we've never seen a successful attack on the Bitcoin blockchain. So no one was ever able to erase the block or to add the block, right? The only things we've seen are attacks on the endpoint. So an endpoint could be someone's wallet that's compromised, but an endpoint could also be Coinbase. So it's a big thing, the endpoint, but this is not the network. And there's good solutions how to protect the endpoint on such a network, and that's custody. So we already got that solved, right? You have cold wallet, and you have smart key management, and multi-party computation, and multi-sig. You have all the technology out there, and this problem is solved. However, now that we look at DeFi and Web3 in general, now transactions have gone to the next level. We don't want to just move Bitcoin from A to B. We want to stake. We want to borrow. We want to mint an NFT. We want to do flash loans, right? We want to do crazy things. Those things require code. And the more complicated are the things we want to do, the more complicated the code is going to be. And I can tell you right now, when there's code, there are always going to be vulnerabilities. Always. And more than that, remember how we said the more complicated it is, the more people will go through an intermediary? So now, here's your one single point of failure right there. Because Uniswap is fully decentralized. Let's assume for a second their code is bulletproof. No vulnerabilities. It's not, by the way, I'm sure. But even if it is, if most of us are going through the web app or a website, then we're not there. This is not decentralized. This is as centralized as it gets. This is classic Web 2. And then we are exposed to a lot of Web 2 attacks, and we'll talk about that as well. So we have new problems, and the old solution, custody, is no longer helping us fully. So it's still very important, obviously. It probably covers about 50% of the problems, but there's a whole 50% that is not covered for two reasons. The first one is because it doesn't matter if you have a bulletproof vault in your house if your money is not in it. And in DeFi, our money is not necessarily in our custody. If you're sitting in a liquidity pool somewhere, or somewhere you put your money on a smart contract, or you're on a bridge crossing, headed anywhere, I don't know, somewhere else, your money is not secured. It doesn't matter what custody you have. But even worse, also the money that is in your very secured custody is at risk. And the reason is that the way DeFi works is by giving an approval. You give an approval to a platform. By giving an approval, that means you're giving someone permission to reach into your super secured custody and do whatever it is you all agreed on. That doesn't always work so well, right? Because what we do, and that's how we call it, is blind signing. People hit approve, but they don't really know what they're approving. Most of the wallets today don't give you any clarity on that. You see some hexadecimal blob, and you just hope to God that that's the right thing to do. That's not a good way to transact. Imagine your bank would tell you, transfer money to this random place. Maybe it's the right address, maybe it's not. Let's see how it goes, right? You wouldn't move money this way. And so we're going to be talking a bit about that as well. So this is how we got here, where billions of dollars are being stolen from DeFi users, actually, sometimes the platforms themselves. And they look different. I mean, there are many things. There are flash loan attack and code exploit and compromised private keys and oracle manipulation and front-end attacks and rug pull and phishing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I want to do today is go over some of those attacks with you to just show you a bit on each one and what can we learn from them and how can we do better. So I'll start with the Badger DAO because it's a very, very basic one. It's an old one also. It's from December 21. The Badger DAO, the code was perfect. There was no problem in the code. This is a classic Web 2 attack, what we call front-end attack, which means you attack someone on the supply chain. You don't attack the platform itself. Specifically, the Badger DAO, the attack, I don't remember. It's here in the slide. Oh, the Cloudflare account was compromised. Anyway, by making this compromise, the attacker was able to hand the users a malicious transaction to sign. Okay, so there's a transaction that you use to sign. This is an approval. Normally the approval will go, by the way, in approval, the spender is always the most important thing. Who is the money going to, right? Normally that would be a smart contract. Here the attacker was very lazy. It was a very basic attack. He just used this access he had to hand the users a malicious transaction by changing one thing. He changed the spender to his own wallet. So basically, whatever you do now, money goes straight to the attacker. This is something that is easy to identify. Literally, just go to Etherscan and check the address of the spender. One click, you'll know if it's an EOA, a wallet, or if this is a smart contract. And never, ever, ever give money to an EOA when you're on DeFi. That makes no sense. Another thing to remember here from this attack, that even if you are on the right website, that doesn't make it safe. And that's a really important thing to remember, because oftentimes we speak to a lot of customers, and they say, oh, we have the firewall, that's our product. It's kind of like an antivirus, the first firewall in crypto between the wallet and the platform. And sometimes people will say, I don't need it because I only go to the blue chip platform, something very known. I don't take any risk. I don't make any crazy DeFi adventures. But that doesn't help. Sometimes even the right platforms are under attack. Let's move a little bit forward to see the evolution of the attackers. So this is the convex attack. It's actually an attack on several platforms at the same time, because again, it's a Web 2 attack. This is what it's called DNS poisoning. So the DNS was hijacked through here the name chip, through the registrar. So that means you go to the right website, but somebody's now changing the traffic, taking you somewhere else, because they compromised the third party. This has nothing to do with the platform, with a decentralized platform. And now you get, again, somewhere where somebody's handing you a malicious transaction to sign, but here the attacker was slightly more sophisticated. So this is not now changing the spender to an EOA. They're changing the spender to a different contract, a smart contract, just not the right one. And they even make it look like the original legitimate contract. The prefix and the suffix kind of look alike. So if you're not careful, and even if you remembered your address, this seems familiar to you, and you will approve this transaction. And then you're screwed. So if you look at their attack, again, a bit more sophisticated than what we've seen before. First of all, those green known are the contracts that were used during the attack. Those are the malicious smart contracts that were deployed by the attacker. If you go and do the research, clustering and declustering the wallet, you're able to see that they all came through Tornado Cash. And that's always, a good sign to know that you're in trouble. Because only an attacker who knows that eventually there's going to be an investigation will start from a mixer, knowing that later on somebody's going to try to reveal the identity. And by the way, this is an interesting thing. When we were researching this, we found, you see the yellow one? We found a third contract. This contract was not involved in the attack. If you look at Etherscan, it is not listed, it's not blocked. Nobody knows this contract. Actually, we already reported it, but before we found it, nobody knew about that one. This one is an attack waiting to happen. It's the same attacker, deployed a third one, hasn't used it yet, it's just sitting there, waiting for the next attack. One good thing to say here about the community and crypto Twitter, people are fast to respond, fast to report. It's really crucial and important, because even though when you're hacked and you go and report, you're already not able to stop an attack usually, but you're able to mitigate it substantially, because people are aware now and they're more careful. So there was a person here who was very fast. He says here, I don't know what's happening, but I'm not 100% sure this is okay. And then Convex retweeted, and everybody was on alert. So in terms of our takeaways, what we do at Redefine, it's kind of like an anti-fraud system where we raise flags. So for example, for this attack, when you were going to say approval, we would raise flags. There's a smart contract here. It was funded by a mixer. It was recently deployed. It is unverified. Certain flags together, certain combinations, will look to us like attacks we've seen before, and this is when we're going to say to the user, do not sign this transaction. And again, I mentioned the early public response, and the fact that we can find more IOC, more indication of compromises from this attack, learning for futures attack. This is another one, a different one, an Oracle manipulation one. So more complicated and more thought through, I think. This is an over-collateralized lending platform that was using a third party to get their information about pricing. So it's a decentralized Oracle reporter. And the third party, what they're doing is they're letting people stake money in order to report. And then people report prices. So the attacker here, very smart, read the smart contract, understood how to manipulate that decentralized Oracle together with the smart contract, and did exactly that. He staked a lot of money. He reported the pricing. Obviously, the pricing was off the charts. This way, he was able to fool the platform, the lending platform, and then he went there and he just borrowed a lot of money against it. I think $120 million were stolen this way. Here, the user has very little to do. It's mostly auditing, right? Specifically, I think, for the Oracle company, but also for the protocol. And if you're using a third party as your Oracle, you should understand their code as well. And by the way, if you look at Oracles, there are redundancy, there are things to do in order you're not so dependent and you're not so relying so heavily on one source. And of course, monitoring, which is what we build as well. I'll say one more thing, it's actually not on the slide, but standardization. So for us, it's going to be much easier to secure. For us, I mean the entire community who's dealing with security, if there is standardization for the infrastructure. Nobody needs to invent the Oracle system every time. Nobody needs to invent a bridge in a different way every time. There's an advantage to having some standards in the community, and security is one of them. Okay, one more. I still have some time. This is a private key compromise. So here, the attacker stole the private keys of the deployer. So by stealing the private keys, he doesn't have access to money, he has access to deploying a malicious contract, but the contract looks exactly like the legitimate way of upgrading the original contract. So check this out for us, as a security company. When somebody puts their spender as an EOA, easy to spot, even for a user. When somebody puts a malicious contract, now we come in and we need to raise some flags, but again, it's not the end of the world in terms of the analysis. But when somebody uses the legitimate way to upgrade a contract, puts a malicious contract, here it was a malicious token that was minting excessively, it's very hard to spot. The way we do it is with symbolic execution. So we run a tool looking through the code, reading the code, looking for malicious logic. This is a much more sophisticated way to identify an attack. Definitely not something a user normally does. And of course, custody, custody, custody. This is here on the platform. I don't know what went wrong there, but you as users, the fact that it's not your custody to worry about, I mean, you cannot make sure somebody else has good custody or manages their keys well. So always you need to have on your end as well, your tools, we'll talk a bit about that, about what the users can do, but don't rely on others to have good security. It's just the same way when you go online and you're going to go to Amazon.com and you're like, I don't need security because this is very secure. No, you're not going to go without an antivirus, right? The same way in crypto, never go without endpoint protection as a user. I'm not going to go into that because we don't have time. It's a really cool smart contract vulnerability. Check it on our website. It's very, very interesting. It's actually probably my favorite attack. Last but not least, I couldn't not mention this one just because it's right here at home, right? So ETH Denver, last week, a malicious website was able to convince people to visit the wrong website first, which is just clear phishing, and then connect the wallet, quickly scan through the wallet. If it's ETH, they were taken one place. If they had non-native token, they were taken another place. But either way, the money was stolen from them, and people lost 50 ETH there. Someone specific, like one user lost 44 ETH on this transaction, which is really, really unfortunate. So beware of phishing attempt. Never ever sign blindly. Use the firewall or any other product that could protect you when you transact and explain to you and give you clarity what it is you're signing. Endpoint protection. One last thing, this is the community. We should all work here together. So each and every one of us has a role, and each and every one of us can do something about security. So if you're a wallet provider, clearly custody is the most important thing, but it's not enough. You should give your users transaction analysis, visibility, risk assessment. If you're working on a wallet or you already have a wallet, come talk to me. Redefine would love to supply you with that as a very, very good solution. If you're a DApp, you need to audit, you need to use developer tools, formal verification, symbolic execution, obviously key management, have a bug bounty, verify your code, make sure everybody can read it and look at it and give you notice. Make it transparent. If you're infrastructure, I already mentioned standardization, also have incident response plan in place and so on. Security, I already spoke. We're providing all those tools, but analytics, I must mention, because it's the bread and butter of risk management. Block explorers like Etherscan, Dex analytics like Dex, Screener. We use BitCredit, we use Dune, we use CoinGecko, we use Debunk. All of those, super helpful. We could not have done this without them. So we feel like the community is doing a lot to start fixing this problem. We cannot scale without it. And there are a lot of interesting projects that are, helping the community, and we want to do our part. So we all want to have, celebrate DeFi in peace and safety. And this is going to be what we can do for you guys. We're going to give our approval manager for free for the community, if I can make this video work. It's a 1-minute video. Let's see.
Hey, this is Jesse from Redefine. I'm super excited to introduce our new approval manager, Approvals. Approvals are an inherent mechanism of DeFi. If you're wanting to trade or do anything with a token, you're going to have to give an approval to a spender. And no matter how secure your custody is, once a spender has your approval, they're able to reach into your wallet and take tokens out of it. So being able to understand what approvals you have active and being able to understand the risk associated with those approvals will equip you to be able to assess and mitigate these risks. Our approval manager was constructed by packaging our institutional grade security tools into something that we can give to the community to help better equip each and every one of you out there. You're able to connect your wallet and you can view all of your active approvals across all the chains that we support. as well as the risk assessment of each of those active approvals. You'll then obviously have the ability to revoke those approvals and mitigate any risks that do exist. We hope that this is helpful, and just remember, stay safe out there. We got your back. Hey, this is Jesse from
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.